Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Gavin Fish. Thank you so much for being here. Today we are going to be talking about the case of Ellen Ray Greenberg, who was the 26-year-old Philadelphia school teacher who was killed on January 26th, 2011 by being stabbed 20 times. 10 of which approximately were to the front of her body, her chest and torso, 9 of which were to the back of her head and neck, and the last one was a deep laceration to the top of her head. I want to add a little disclaimer to this video before we get too far into this, okay? Number one, I'm going to be showing 2 autopsy photos. If that is something that makes you squeamish, this is not a video for you to watch. You should stop right now and just watch something else here on YouTube. I know that's a terrible way to begin a YouTube video, to tell you not to watch it, but there it is. I just want to give you that warning. Go somewhere else if that bothers you. Also, I want to let you know that these photos that I'm going to show you, I'm showing you with the blessing of Ellen's parents, Josh and Sandee Greenberg. They have never been shown before publicly. Nobody has ever seen these publicly before. And so when I talked with Josh and Sandee about it, and they gave me permission to do it, we decided that we would crop the section of the segment of the photo I'm going to show you very tightly, and I would blur out the edges so it's not going to be majorly disturbing, but it can be disturbing, and I want you to know that. I also want you to know that I checked in with Tom Brennan, who is a private investigator who has been working pro bono for the Greenbergs for about the last decade, and I wanted to make sure that by showing these, we wouldn't ruin or damage in any way any future, let's say, I guess, a prosecution in any criminal matter. And Tom assured me that by doing it the way I'm doing it, we won't be jeopardizing that. So with that introduction out of the way, I guess we should just hop in. If you're unfamiliar with the Ellen Greenberg case, please head over to my website, gavinfish.com. Let me show you the screen real quick. You can click on cases, then click on Ellen's picture, and it'll take you to this page. It has all the videos I've done on it, including photos that I've curated of Ellen, of the crime scene, and I include every case document that I have in this case, including a very, very, very detailed timeline. So if you don't know the case, please go to the website and check that out, gavinfish.com, and go to cases and Ellen Greenberg, okay? All right, story time. A few weeks ago, I was a guest for the second time, I think, on a YouTube channel called Surviving the Survivor. It's hosted by Joel and Carm. They're amazing, and they've done amazing work covering the Ellen Greenberg case and discussing it at length. Now, while I was a guest on Surviving the Survivor, something kind of came up that just kind of tickled me in the back of my mind that, hey, what is being said right now actually isn't true. But I don't blame the people who said it, because for all intents and purposes, the public believes what was said to be true. And so what that is that I'm going to switch over to, this is Ellen Greenberg's autopsy report. This report was done by Dr. Marlon Osbourne, and on the first page, kind of the second bullet point, he finds that there were multiple contusions on Ellen's upper and lower extremities in various stages of resolution. You've probably heard, if you've been watching this case, you've probably heard that phrase several times. There were many bruises in various stages of resolution on Ellen's arms and legs, and people repeat that as if it is true. And you should be able to trust an autopsy report to contain true and accurate information. But because I have been privy to being able to see the autopsy photos and the crime scene photos and several other things that have never been made public, I know that that sentence is untrue. Well, I know that it's incomplete. Multiple contusions were on Ellen's upper and lower extremities, and they were in various stages of resolution, but they were not the only contusions on Ellen's body. Another thing that has been repeated over and over again by news media, by podcasters, YouTubers like myself, and others is that there were no defensive wounds in Ellen's case. Now, I'm not going to address that. I'm not going to address that as far as showing photos on that, because I believe that that would damage the case. But let me just tell you that that is patently absurd. There are defensive wounds on Ellen's hands, wrists, fingers, knuckles, and so forth. They exist. Now, this reminds me, like having this conversation actually reminds me of a letter that I got last year, which was, I can't believe it's been a little bit over a year since I got this letter, but this was a letter from Jeffrey R. Johnson, a lawyer representing Sam Goldberg's father, Richard Goldberg, and his uncle, James Schwartzman, and cousin, Kamian Schwartzman. Now, these people are important because Sam Goldberg was Ellen's fiance and claimed that he found Ellen dead in their kitchen. He even called 911 and, apparently discovered the knife pointing out of her chest, sticking out of her chest while on that call. It's the worst piece of acting I've ever seen. And Sam Goldberg called and spoke to, spoke to Kamian Schwartzman and James Schwartzman before he ever called 911. So, because of something that I said, they accused me of defamation. It doesn't really matter. You can go back and see other videos that I've done on that. But I want to read a sentence from this letter that actually really kind of chaps me. It says, the manner in which you heap speculation. Again, they're telling me that he is telling me that I've defamed his clients and that I'm a liar. But the manner in which you heap speculation and lies one upon another is truly astounding and explains, but does not justify, how your defamatory statements are completely at variance with the conclusions of experienced investigators who have complete access to all the investigative materials and who have universally concluded that Ellen Greenberg's death was the result of her killing herself. Now, what really chaps me about this sentence, guys, is that, one, experienced investigators who have looked at this case do not universally conclude, what did they say? Universally conclude that Ellen's death was a result of her harming herself. That nothing is further from the truth there. That is completely false. And number two, it is a reflection of the belief of so many people out there that hey, there are things that are unexplained, like she had no, defensive wounds. And guys, it's absolute bunk. Now, the reason that I think that this narrative has taken hold, I think there are two reasons. The first reason, the first reason, has roots in the medical examiner's office. I believe that the examination report and the autopsy were done, well, they tell me that there was just major negligence and incompetence on the part of the pathologist who made this autopsy report. It's absolutely mind-boggling to me that he would say that on the external examination, there are just multiple contusions on her arms and legs. And, this statement right here, I want you guys I want you to remember, okay? The conjunctivae have no petechiae. So the conjunctivae he's talking about are the whites of your eyes, and petechiae means that there's like been burst blood vessels in the eye. And he has said that there is no petechiae in the whites of her eyes. And that's going to be important when we get back to it. So the first thing that I said is I think there was incompetence at play here. Certainly negligence at play here. And honestly, I think there was perjury at play here because Dr. Osbourne and his boss, Dr. Gulino, were asked about by Ellen Greenberg's family's lawyers if Dr. Osbourne had any problems with his performance. And this was done in deposition under oath. So I want to, I think where I want to start now that we're 10 minutes into this video, is let's take a look at the deposition of Dr. Sam Gulino, who was the chief medical examiner in Philadelphia at the time that Dr. Osbourne performed the autopsy on Ellen. Take a look.
Dr. Osbourne, has there ever been any criticism of his work that you're aware of?
Dr. Osbourne did not have any performance problems while he worked here, and he left the city under good circumstances. He wanted to take a job back in Florida. So I was not aware of any problems with his performance that required disciplinary action.
Well, before you became the medical examiner, is there the existence of any like written reprimands or things of that nature involving Dr. Osbourne?
Dr. Osbourne came on after me. I hired him.
Oh, okay.
So I came in 2008. He was hired in, I believe, 2009. And then he left in, I think, 2014.
And it's your understanding that there's never been a criticism of his work in any written form?
That is correct.
And this just may be that you aren't aware of it. Is there a place where if there were such written reprimands, they would be stored as best as you know?
If there were any kind of written disciplinary action or reprimands, they would be in his personnel file in the Office of Human Resources. Like I said, he left in 2014. I don't know what the retention policies is for those files. From when he was hired until late 2011, November or December of 2011, I would have been his only supervisor because I did not have a deputy chief during that time. Starting in late 2011, I promoted Dr. Gary Collins to the position of deputy chief. At that point, from that point forward, he would have been Dr. Osbourne's supervisor. But I would have been aware, I presume, of any kind of disciplinary action against Dr. Osbourne from that point on.
All right, and not necessarily disciplinary action. I mean, there could be written criticisms of, say, the quality of some work.
I'm using that term collectively. So any kind of negative statements about Dr. Osbourne's work would be either in his personnel file or I would have been aware of them, and I'm not aware of any.
Okay, so I think that the Greenberg's attorney did that masterfully, right? He left no stone unturned there. He's like, were there any written reprimands? Was there anything wrong with his performance? Dr. Gulino says no. And we can actually take a look at the what do we call this? The transcript, right? Dr. Osbourne did not have any performance problems while he worked here, and he left the city under good circumstances. And he talked about hiring Dr. Osbourne himself. He promoted Dr. Collins. If Dr. Collins wrote anything, then he would know about it. His testimony is no, Dr. Osbourne had no problems, right? Now let's take a look at what Dr. Osbourne has to say about this in his deposition when he was asked the same question.
Doctor, have you ever received any written warnings or reprimand for the quality of your work when you were at the Philadelphia Medical Examiner's Office?
No.
Were you ever criticized for sloppy record keeping?
No,
Ever criticized for incomplete autopsy records?
no,
Were you ever criticized for any discrepancies in your report, like indicating no trauma when trauma was present?
no,
Have you ever had any criticism at all of your work when you were working at the Philadelphia Medical Examiner's office?
no, not to my knowledge. No.
Well, I would imagine that if you did receive written reprimands or written warnings, that's something you wouldn't forget, right?
Absolutely. So
Okay.
no, I did not have that.
All right.
Okay, so Dr. Osbourne's testimony is no, he never received any written reprimands. And again, we have it right here. You know, did you ever receive written warnings or reprimands for the quality of your work? No. Were you ever criticized for sloppy record keeping? No. Incomplete autopsy records? No. Were you ever criticized for discrepancies on your report, like indicating no trauma when trauma was present? That line to me is so important. No. Would you forget? Like, no, I wouldn't forget if I had been given a written reprimand. Okay. Now, again, Joe Pedraza, the attorney in this one, is doing really, really good work here. But you know who else has done really good work? Tom Brennan. Tom Brennan has done some very, very good work, and indeed, he has found multiple reprimands of Dr. Osbourne in the files. And I want to start with this one. This one's dated 7/24/2012, so this is about a year and a half after Ellen Greenberg was murdered. And this is from Dr. Gary Collins, who was the deputy chief at the time. And you can go to my website and you can read this whole document. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I've highlighted a couple things that I think are important. He says the following cases had errors, and I recommend better attention be paid to in the future to avoid making such occurrences. The case, stab wound to the chest. This is not Ellen Greenberg. This is somebody else. The end of the external examination contains the sentence, the body has no external evidence of recent significant traumatic injury. Considering the decedent died of a stab wound to the chest, this sentence is inaccurate. I recommend that if a template is used, care must be taken to remove sentences and statements from the template that contradict the findings of the autopsy. So Dr. Collins is saying, hey, you're wrong on this one. He lists a whole bunch of them where he's wrong. I just showed you one. And maybe it's because you're using a template. If you're using templates, be very careful with those templates. Here are a couple other ones. I just chose the stab wound ones, right? Okay, the first paragraph of the internal examination states that the chest wall has no injuries. The decedent received a stab wound to the chest. The therapeutic findings of the bilateral chest tubes were not mentioned in the report. In addition, the findings associated with the stab wound were not clearly identified. Associated findings are important in documenting the mechanism of death. Next case, stab wound to the chest. The description of the anatomic location on the body can be more precise. Stab wound of right leg is actually a stab wound of right thigh. The wound to the chest lacks the depth of penetration. It is recommended that for all stab wounds, a depth of penetration be included, and the proper anatomic location stated for all wounds, stab wound or otherwise. Last one that's a stab wound. The examination lacks mention of the laparotomy scar. The wound depth could be clearer in the description of the stab wound. So Dr. Collins is like, you're making a lot of mistakes here, and I think you're using templates. Be very careful, Dr. Osbourne. Get better. And he copied, let me show you this, Dr. Gulino. So Dr. Gulino would have seen this written reprimand of Dr. Osbourne when he testified that he didn't. To me, I don't think that's an accident. I think that's a cover-up. I think that is probably perjury. Let's go to another written reprimand of Dr. Osbourne. This one from Dr. Gary Collins the following month, right? I think. Let me just look at this. 7/24/2012 was the one I just showed you. Here's 8/31/2012. So it's just a little over 30 days later. It has been brought to my attention that 17 cases were discovered to have either incomplete autopsy reports or inaccurate information contained therein. 17 files. Even more serious and dangerous flaws in your work were evidenced in case 12-0316, which has been pending since January 2012. Review of the photographs and circumstances clearly show that there is evidence of strangulation and that the manner of death is homicide. Evidence of strangulation and the manner of death is homicide. Guys, remember that. This is very important. The autopsy photographs clearly show a ligature mark around the neck and petechiae of the eyes. Your report reads, the conjunctiva has no petechiae. Oh, let's see. I just want to make sure. This is from Dr. Collins. Oh, I'll keep going. There's more. Considering that we have had discussions in numerous coaching sessions about the need to have accurate and timely preparation of reports, this document serves as written reprimand for the deficiencies that you have displayed with your cases. Please be aware this poor performance will be reflected in your performance evaluation. While you were on leave, Dr. Gulino unpended and amended 13 cases and signed an additional 27 cases for a total of 40 of your cases that were finalized in your absence. Of the 40 cases that were finalized, only 3 of those cases did not have the toxicology reports completed for you to finalize the case before you went on leave. Dr. Collins does not like the performance of Dr. Osbourne, and look, he has CC'd Dr. Gulino. That isn't it. Let's look at another one, shall we? Let's see. This one's from Dr. Gulino himself. This is from December 16th, 2013. So just about a year later, or a little over a year later. Marlon, I was contacted by the chief of trauma surgery at AEMC to let me know about a serious issue that occurred at their hospital with regard to a homicide victim. While I was gathering information about this, I learned that Chris had been notified of this matter several days ago and that he had notified you about it as the case doctor. However, I am discouraged to see that neither you nor Chris documented anything about this in the CME, which is their content management system, signed Dr. Gulino. So Dr. Gulino was aware and had even written reprimands against Dr. Osbourne. So in my opinion, both Dr. Gulino and Dr. Osbourne committed perjury in their depositions. And why would they do that? In my opinion, this comes to the second reason that I think this is happening, is I think that there is a cover-up of shoddy work within the medical examiner's office in Philadelphia at the time that Marlon Osbourne was the medical examiner. Oh, so remember how we learned that he had written that there was no petechiae in the eyes in another report, and his supervisor found that indeed there was. Well, once again, right here, he wrote in Ellen Greenberg's case that there was no petechiae in her eyes. Kind of a problem, right? And then nowhere in this autopsy report does it say anything about any wounds, bruising, hemorrhaging, anything other than the brief mention of contusions on her upper and lower extremities, and of course the documentation of each stab wound that I think he probably did okay, that part. He seemed to be a little more detailed about that part. But let's talk about manual strangulation. And this is the point, guys, where if you are disturbed by seeing graphic details from autopsy photos, this is where you leave me now, okay, if you haven't already. I'm going to show 2 photos. Josh and Sandee, if you're with me right now, please close your eyes, keep listening, whatever, but don't watch this. Okay, we're going to go over into Photoshop here, guys, where I've got the images up. This is, as you can see, a cropped and blurred picture, but this is Ellen Greenberg's neck. You can kind of see right here that handle. You can guess what that is, okay? Now, on Ellen Greenberg's neck, there are multiple bruises. Let's zoom in. There is one, if you can see my, you guys can see my cursor. There's one right here, and then there are multiple kind of coming around the bottom of her neck and coming up to the top over here on what is her right side. These are all bruises on her neck, and these are indicative, not according to me, but according to Dr. Wayne Ross, these are indicative of manual strangulation. Now, I personally, guys, have a color deficiency, what we usually call color blindness. The reason that I'm not an astronaut right now is because of my eyes, and I have a hard time seeing these. And so what I've done in Photoshop to kind of help me is to just kind of increase the saturation here. And so I'm gonna, open up that layer. With the saturation kind of really ramped up, you can see evidence, you can see bruises all over her neck in the shape of a ligature. I think it's probably more likely a hand mark. Like, I think this is probably a thumbprint right here, and the webbing of the hand goes all the way around the front of her neck, and that bruising is there, and it is not in the autopsy report. You can see it whether it is overly saturated or not. The bruising is there. And then let me bring you up closer to another little part of this. Let's see this picture. You see those squiggly lines right there? Those are imprints that have blood. I mean, the redness that you're seeing there is blood. That is a hemorrhage. Dr. Wayne Ross believes in his report that this may be fingernail marks from Ellen trying to pull whoever was grabbing her neck, trying to pull that off of her neck, whether it was a hand or some kind of tool. He believes that these are marks from Ellen's own fingernails, which means there would be skin under her fingernails, which is not included in the autopsy report and not included in any other report that I have access to. Okay, so that is, I guess, picture number one that I want to, let's see, where kind of back up so you can see that. Number two, this one is a little more, this next picture that I'm going to show you is of the inside of Ellen's neck, okay? Again, if you handled that one fine, that's also fine, but I'm going to give you a warning now. I'm going to show a picture of the inside of Ellen's neck. Before I do, let me describe what happens in an autopsy. Now, kind of having become an expert of looking at autopsy photos. In our neck, we have multiple neck muscles that do different things, and they kind of are formed in straps and layers. And so as a pathologist is performing an autopsy of the neck, performing a dissection of the neck, they deflect up the layers of muscles. And so what we're going to look at here is the inside of Ellen's neck with the skin removed and with the layers of muscles, those straps also deflected up. That part is going to be blurred, but I'm going to show you a very specific part of the inside of Ellen's neck. Okay, last warning, I'm going to go for it. Okay, here we go. Okay, this red mark right there is in basically what is the right center of Ellen's neck, of the kind of channel that contains your windpipe, your esophagus, several things that go up the middle of your neck. That red mark right there is a hemorrhage, and that is also indicative of manual strangulation. Okay? So that right there, in addition to that right there, look at it with overly saturated or not overly saturated. And guys, I think this is unquestionable evidence that Ellen was manually strangled. Now, I'm not saying she died because of it. I'm saying that she was grabbed by the neck. That is not noted anywhere in the autopsy report that Dr. Osbourne did. He only ever said that there were multiple contusions on her extremities. Now, I know that I've said this multiple times, but I just want to hammer it home, guys. The idea that Ellen, and I'm not going to give details on this, but Josh and Sandee have started to come out a little bit more recently and say that they suspect that their daughter was being abused, that she was a victim of domestic abuse. In my opinion, everything that I've seen in both the autopsy photos and the crime scene photos also supports that conclusion that the Greenbergs have come to. There are bruises on Ellen's body, and there are cuts, and there are hemorrhages on Ellen's body that are not listed anywhere in the autopsy report that I know are there because I have seen them. So, in my opinion, Ellen was being abused. Ellen was probably trying, and this is just conjecture at this point, but Ellen was probably trying to figure out a way to leave an abusive relationship. And as we all know, the most dangerous time in an abusive relationship for a victim of abuse, domestic abuse, is at the moment that the victim is trying to leave. Based on the crime scene photos that I've seen, I believe that Ellen was trying to leave, and that is the reason that she is no longer with us today. So, I hope that this illuminates a little bit more as far as the facts of this case, that when we look at letters from Mr. Johnson and other people who say things the way that Mr. Johnson says, that experienced investigators who have complete access to all the investigative materials have universally concluded that Ellen did this to herself, is bullcrap. It is not true. They're wrong. They're leading you astray either on purpose or on accident, but either way, you're being led astray. Okay? With that, I will bid you adieu. Thank you very much for being here. I'll see you next time. Take care. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe to my channel. And if you have any comments or questions, please leave them below.